and that's an incredible opportunity. Over this past year, I taught a class for about 15 weeks on the Noam Elimelech's notion of a tzaddik, and some of the important ideas from what constitutes a tzaddik include the following. First of all, a tzaddik is somebody who's constantly growing. It's not somebody who has reached peak enlightenment. It's somebody who's actually going madrega lemadrega, and is constantly in a state of growth. And that means that a tzaddik is somebody who is analyzing their inner state and how that inner state impacts their behavior. Another really important thing about the notion of the tzaddik in the Noam Elimelech is the idea that a tzaddik is somebody who is both deeply fulfilled with Yirat Shamayim, but is also deeply, deeply humanist, and is deeply concerned with the needs of the people around them and the state of humanity. And so with that thought, we're going to talk a little bit about one inner state that impacts our behavior on a day-to-day basis, and how we can think about transforming ourselves into better human beings to create a better world. So we'll start with this notion of tzaras. So would anybody like to read the pasuk on tzaras? Yeah, go for it.
Adam ki yeh ve'or ve'sara she'et sa tachat v'ha'eret v'haya ve'or ve'sara le'nega sarat ve'uva el Aharon hakohen el achad mi banav hakohanim.
Excellent. Right, so when a person finds on their body this tzarat, they should go to the Kohen, and they should let the Kohanim handle it. But essentially, we have this notion of a tzarat, and this is like the initial introduction to this concept of tzarat. And some of the, of course, rabbinic interpretations of tzarat are really important. What are the common rabbinic associations with the notion of tzarat? Yeah.
It's caused by Lashon Hara.
Great. Miriam says Lashon Hara, and that's how she gets tzarat. Yeah.
Caused by being like stringent with your money.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay. Great. Has to do with the way we use our money, the way we interact with people, transactions. Great. So one of the ideas that the Noam Elimelech is going to pull out from this is that tzarat has to do with this concept of geva, of ego. Well, we could translate geva in many different ways. I think ego is a very helpful one, but if that's too abstract, you could say arrogance, selfishness. Anybody have any others? Yeah. Brazenness. Great. Haughty. And I think when we're thinking about ego, one of the things that comes to mind for me is a sense of entitlement, and a sense that whatever I'm doing is only for myself. Okay, so with that in mind, let's jump into what the Noam Elimelech has to say about tzaras. Would anybody like to read in the Hebrew the first paragraph? The Noam Elimelech.
I can get my Noam now.
Here, I can open it up for
We
you.
got two volunteers.
If not, I'll just jump in.
Oh, we got one back here.
Okay, go for it.
די שלא תיקן את אורו שיהיה אור באלף, אלא שהוסיף חלילה חטאים ועוונות באורו.
Thank you. Okay. So it says that when a person has on the skin of their body, etc., right? It's referring to the pasuk. He says, Gashmiut is referred to with this name basar. So when we see in the pasuk this concept of bisaro, it's referring to the behavior or the reality of Gashmiut. Gashmiut being physical. What I'd like to define it here as decadent physicality, not just being a part of the physical world, but that there's something inherently decadent about it, something very self-aggrandizing and perhaps self-damaging. Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
Dougie's Gashmias.
It's Dougie's Gashmias. I don't know. Depends how you use it.
Oh, sure.
So yes. Okay. So right. Gashmis nikra b'shem basar. V'hainu sheichnis chalila. So this is when a person allows, God forbid, the desire for decadence into their skin. Right? Why does it say skin here? Of course,
The affliction.
we're referring to tsaras, letting something into your skin. And it says this really interesting line. Perish lo dai shelo tikenit oro sheyeh or ba'alef. Says it's not enough that he doesn't do this transformative act. And what is the transformative act? A person doesn't fix themselves so that they will transform ore, skin, into ore, as in light, with an aleph.
Wow.
That we have this ability to transform ourselves from being a person with skin into a being with light. And instead, shosif chalila chatim v'avanot be'oro. Right? He continues to manifest in sinfulness. So why is he doing that? Right? All right, 1 second. Okay. So it says, I'm going to continue in the English. The Torah asks, what are these sins and transgressions? And it says, se'et, it's lifted or swollen, which is a hint to negative behaviors or attributes that are the root of all sin. By means of these negative behaviors, a person opens up to a host of sins. So it's not clear what he's talking about yet. He's saying there's a hint to this idea that there's this source of all sins. What is the source of all sins, and why is it that this one thing brings people to do so many bad things? And so he ends this little piece over here with the intro. He says, "V'shorish midot haraod." What's the source of all these bad behaviors? It's gaiva, it's egoism, it's arrogance. And when it says se'et, lifted, it's a hint to arrogance, as it says in the Midrash that se'et is referring to Bavel. And what do we know about the Tower of Bavel? What did they do? Right, they wanted to reach God. They wanted to achieve something beyond their own existence. They wanted to reach above everyone else.
We said let's make a name for ourselves.
Right.
And that's the passage.
Exactly. Let's make a name for ourselves. Let's make ourselves distinct. Let's make ourselves beyond what anybody else is. And I guess the question. So I guess what we're working towards here is a sense that ge'ava, that egoism, is the root of all evil traits, because it causes us to have this self-aggrandizement that leads us to Gashmiut. So I guess my question is, to take it to a second tier question, what does arrogance have to do with physical, with being Gashmiistic, with being involved in the physical world in a self-aggrandizing, in a decadent way? What do you guys think those two concepts have to do with each other, arrogance and Gashmiut? Yeah.
I think that it's kind of like in Sukkot, when you build yourself up in Sukkot, and you say, all of this, my skin, everything that I'm building up to, everything that gives me this arrogance, it could all fade away. It's just physical. And when you realize that like you're vulnerable, that even your skin can just betray you, that's like a moment where you like humble your own inner arrogance.
Right, so there's a notion of like a temporariness, that like all the physical things in our life are temporary. And when we realize that, maybe we can feel humbled by reality and come back to earth. Anybody else have some thoughts on that connection, arrogance and Gashmiut? Yeah.
Sorry, oftentimes we kind of talk about like the two purposes of man is to like improve ourselves and also like improve the world and kind of, you know, be as good as we can. And so we also kind of sometimes maybe get in our head that like it's us, like we're doing all this. It's hard. It's easy. It's easy for a farmer to like rely on God because he needs rain and whatever, but it's much harder for like, let's say somebody who's building stuff with their hands, and you can kind of see like it's you physically doing it, but it might not be you in actuality, because God is kind of the one who put you in this position and everything leading up to it. But a lot of Gashmiut kind of seems like it's us who's doing all the things that, you know, is building everything around us and gives us a bit of arrogance.
Right. It's the sense that we're living in we have so many amazing things that come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and when we don't recognize that, we think that the things we're doing with our physical hands is just us, but really it's the result of all of the things that allow us to live in this world. All the interconnectedness of reality, actually is the thing that allows us to actually live in this physical world in a real way. And if we don't have that sense of appreciation, then we're not living a shared existence. We're living an existence that's only for ourselves. Great. So I was looking at this piece with my friend, and we were kind of going over the Noam Elimelech, and she found this really interesting piece online. Yes, question, please. Yes, absolutely.
I just have a very basic question.
Oh, yes, please.
The second to last paragraph refers to lifted. What is that a reference to?
Okay, so if you look at the pasuk at the top, it says, when a person has on the skin of the body a swelling, and I switched the translation to the term lifted, to say eight, because it's like linso, it's like to lift, or like a lifting of the skin. Yeah. So what's happening is
play on the word eight.
Yes, exactly. That we lift ourselves above others, right? That we lift ourselves beyond others. That separation, that way of when we separate ourselves from our community, we're allowing our ego to take control, and we're not coming at things from a place of, we're coming to things from a place that isn't humble. Yeah. So it's very interesting how he uses this concept of Torah to do that. Yeah.
I was saying that you can even use the word swelling to describe that aspect of a person's personality, like the swelling of ego, or swelling of pride, or something like.
Yes.
Like a stirring up inside.
Chametz, interesting.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yes. Chametz, and we're coming up on the Chametz holiday, Shavuos. Shavuos is the holiday of Chametz because we bring Chametz, the korban of Chametz, to the bits of Beis Mikdash. It's really all a cycle, right? We go from non-chametz to chametz. Anyways, so
I think Mo was telling me that you guys need to go.
You guys need to go?
I'm feeling too.
Oh, it's 6 o'clock. Okay. Well, here's what I'll say. I hope that what we can gain from this idea is that Gashmiut alone is not a bad thing. It's bad when it gets lost in egoism. When we allow the Gashmiut to turn into something that changes us and makes us lose ourselves in a way that creates a disconnection between us and our communities. And we really need to create a sense of connection, and that connection comes from a place of humility. And that seems to be why the Noam Elimelech thinks that Gava is the source of all sin, because Because the Ahava is the thing that separates us, that makes us feel completely separated, just like the Tzarat separates us from the community. You have to leave the community when you have Tzarat. We don't want to separate ourselves. We want to be together with everyone. So, B'Shem Kol Yisrael.
My friends, I just want to say one thing. First of all, it's a special schus for Raffi to be teaching here in our yeshiva because he's such beautiful words of Torah, and he's a direct descendant of the Noam Elimelech in Yeshiva Elimelech. What is very
Teaching Noam Elimelech.
Teaching Noam Elimelech. A big thank you to everybody for joining in, and everybody's welcome to join for all of Shabbos, for whatever you want to be part of. I want to just say, why are we tonight's Rosh Chodesh Iyar? Why are we davening Nates tomorrow morning for Rosh Chodesh Iyar?